2015, 200 years since the Waterworks opened.
And still standing.
This is certainly one of the oldest in the country.
State of the art then.
Originally the only pumping station when it opened in 1815, supplying drinking water to the city.
A marvelous mill house and dam so elaborate and accessible, it became the gathering place for visitors and community folk alike.
It was really interesting to the public to see all this mechanical gear lined up. 8 water wheels with 8 pumps. It was really quite unusual to see that.
And it worked for almost a century.
Yes, and it was not a good thing by the end of that time because the river was polluted and we were actually very effectively pumping disease-causing organisms into the city.
This pumping party was over. What happened to this massive structure over the last century, you really have to be of a certain age to remember, and some of it pretty ugly.
Well, we almost lost it.
Philadelphia Water Department environmental engineer Drew Brown, one of the driving forces for decades now, pushing preservation. Outside is restored to eye-popping glory. But there's much more to this grand old dam.
Some things the public would never see that I want to show you today.
Let's go see them. Pass the public tour.
This channel was cut through the building to enable to get water to the turbine.
And educational center.
I mean, they're from 1822.
Awesomeness we never could have imagined.
We're in the boiler room of the Art Museum.
At least it was in the 1920s.
Concrete platforms like this one.
But the Art Museum sits way up the hill.
They didn't want to put boilers in the Art Museum because boilers exploded frequently. They didn't want to put the art at risk.
Great for the artwork hundreds of yards away, not so much for the aquarium that occupied the same room from 1911 until 1962.
This looks like the top of the Titanic.
It's where leftovers from the old aquarium were found in the 80s.
These are fish hatching tubs.
To raise their own supply of fish for display. Inside, huge tanks you viewed from a skylight in the rooftop walkway.
That's just sediment that formed a thin layer on the glass.
Oh, that's pretty heavy glass. People walked on this glass 100 years ago and leaned against these even longer.
Are these original?
Yes, these balusters were put in place in 1872. It's all cast iron, and then they were painted to make them look like stone, like cut stone.
Most of what you see outside today are replicas. So what becomes of these?
Look.
Or what lies beyond this room?
That right there looks a little spooky to me.
That's where we're going.
Okay.
We're going to need Shane's light, though.
You go first.
This is a fuel pump, also 1920s.
And then a mysterious hole in the wall.
I thought I was going to find the buried treasure up there.
What'd you find?
Nothing. Trash.
Oh well, moving on.
Okay.
We're going to leave the old mill house and enter the new mill house. Built at the beginning of the Civil War.
But a century later, the Kelly swimming pool.
Well, the pool was installed in 1962 when this part of the aquarium closed, but it only lasted 10 years. But in that 10 years, a lot of Philadelphians came here for swimming lessons, for recreation, for competitions.
The view, still breathtaking. The windows, doors, and balconies not disturbed by the pool construction. Drew says they have found some creative ways to use it until they can renovate it someday.
Recently, we've had an opera and an art show in here.
But to do more, millions must be raised. Until then,
I think it's a great part of the city. Still a hidden gem.
But Executive Director Karen Young is not giving up on ways to attract more people and donors to expand this free, off-the-beaten-path experience.
Did you feel anything when you were here? You know, a little haunting, a little spookiness? I feel hopeful when I'm here, and I don't even think about it as underground. I think of it as at the river.
Joyce Evans, Fox 29 News.